The Aurora Dawn drifted through the vastness of space, its engines humming softly as it carried its crew toward their next destination. The crystalline orb, now housed in a secure chamber aboard the ship, remained at the center of everyone's thoughts. Though it had stabilized after their encounter on Earth, none of them could shake the feeling that they were merely scratching the surface of its true nature. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. The weight of their mission, and the choices they had made, pressed heavily on her shoulders. Aaron Blake spent most of his time studying the orb, determined to understand its behavior. He worked alongside Dr. Emily Carter, poring over data and running simulations. The orb responded to their efforts in subtle ways, emitting faint pulses of light and rearranging patterns within its crystalline structure. It was as if it were learning from them, adapting to their presence. "It's like it's trying to communicate," Aaron said one evening, his voice tinged with both excitement and unease. "But I'm not sure what it's saying." Emily adjusted, her glasses, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Maybe it's not trying to say anything specific. Maybe it's just observing us, testing us even." Aaron frowned. "Testing us for what? To see if we're worthy of wielding its power? Or to see if we'll make the same mistakes again?" Emily replied quietly. "We can't forget what happened on Earth, or what humanity did to itself." Meanwhile, tension simmered among the rest of the crew. Marcus Lane and Rachel Kim often found themselves at odds, their differing views on the orb fueling heated debates. Marcus believed the orb posed too great a risk, while Rachel argued that destroying it outright would be a waste of its potential. "We don't know enough about it yet," Rachel insisted during one such argument. "If we destroy it, we might lose our only chance to turn it into something positive. And if we don't destroy it, we might end up regretting it," Marcus shot back. "You saw what it did to those creatures. What makes you think it won't do the same to us?" Ensign Daniel Ross listened silently, his youthful face pale with worry. He admired both Marcus and Rachel, but couldn't help feeling torn between their perspectives. Deep down, he wondered if there was a middle ground, a way to harness the orb's power without unleashing its destructive potential. Laura noticed the growing divide within her team and decided to address it. She called a meeting in the briefing room, her tone calm but firm as she spoke. "I know we all have different opinions about the orb," she began, "and that's okay. But we need to remember why we're here. This isn't about taking sides or proving who's right. It's about finding a way forward. For all of us." Aaron nodded in agreement. "The orb represents a choice, a chance to redefine how we approach power and responsibility. If we let fear dictate our actions, we'll never move past the mistakes of the past." Marcus crossed his arms, his expression skeptical. "That's easy to say when you're sitting here talking about possibilities. But out there, in the real world, choices have consequences. And so does inaction," Rachel countered. "If we ignore the orb's potential, we're no better than the people who abandoned Earth." Laura raised a hand to silence them. "Enough. Arguing isn't going to solve anything. From now on, we focus on gathering information, not jumping to conclusions. Let's take this one step at a time." As the days passed, the crew began to notice changes in the orb's behavior. It seemed to grow more responsive, reacting to their emotions and interactions. When tensions ran high, its glow dimmed, almost as if it were withdrawing. But when the crew worked together harmoniously, the orb pulsed brightly, casting soft waves of light across the room. One night, Aaron stayed late in the lab, studying the orb's patterns. He felt a strange connection to it, as though it were reaching out to him in some unspoken way. As he sat there, lost in thought, the orb emitted a sudden burst of light, startling him. "What was that?" he whispered, leaning closer. The orb's surface shimmered, and a series of images appeared before his eyes. They weren't chaotic like before. Instead, they were clear and deliberate. He saw glimpses of distant planets, thriving ecosystems, and civilizations working together in harmony. Then, the images shifted, showing scenes of destruction, planets burning, cities crumbling, lives lost. Aaron realized the orb wasn't just showing him possibilities, it was warning him. It was reminding him of the delicate balance between creation and destruction, life and death. If humanity misused its power, the consequences would be catastrophic. He hurried to the bridge to share his findings with Laura and the others. "It's trying to teach us something," he explained. "It's not just a tool or a weapon, it's a mirror. It reflects who we are and what we're capable of." Laura nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe the question isn't whether we can control it. Maybe it's whether we're ready to face ourselves." The crew's journey took them to a remote colony orbiting a dying star. The colonists, desperate for resources, had turned to dangerous methods of survival, including mining unstable asteroids for energy. When the Aurora Dawn arrived, they were met with suspicion and hostility. "We don't need your help," the colony's leader, a grizzled man named Victor Hale, declared. "We've survived this long without interference." Laura tried to reason with him. "Your methods are unsustainable. If you keep pushing the limits, you'll destroy yourselves and this planet." Victor scoffed. "Survival isn't about playing it safe. It's about doing whatever it takes." Aaron stepped forward, holding the crystalline orb carefully. "This is what happens when we prioritize short-term gains over long-term consequences. Humanity has faced extinction because of choices like yours. Is that really the legacy you want to leave behind?" For a moment, Victor hesitated. Then, reluctantly, he agreed to hear them out. Over the next few days, the crew worked with the colonists, using the orb's insights to develop safer, more sustainable solutions. The orb's presence seemed to inspire cooperation, helping the colonists see the value of working together rather than competing for resources. When the Aurora Dawn prepared to leave, Victor approached Laura with a look of gratitude. "You were right," he admitted. "We've been so focused on surviving that we forgot how to live. Thank you for reminding us." Laura smiled faintly. "Remember, survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about building a future worth living for." As the ship continued its voyage, the crew began to feel a sense of purpose they hadn't experienced before. The orb had become more than just an object of study. It was a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the most destructive forces could be redirected towards something constructive. Aaron often reflected on the lessons they had learned. "The Nigma Empire warned us about ourselves," he said during one quiet moment on the bridge. "But they underestimated one thing: our capacity for change. We're flawed, yes, but we're also capable of growth." Laura nodded. "And that's what sets us apart. We may not have all the answers, but as long as we keep asking questions, we'll find a way forward." Emily joined them, her expression thoughtful. "Project Eclipse isn't just a relic of the past. It's a challenge, a test of whether we're ready to take responsibility for our actions. If we pass, we might just create a future where no one has to face the same choices we did." The Aurora Dawn sailed onward, its path illuminated by the light of distant stars. Whatever lay ahead, the crew knew they were no longer alone. The orb had become a part of their journey, a silent companion guiding them toward a brighter tomorrow. As Laura gazed out at the endless expanse of space, she felt a flicker of optimism. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but for the first time in a long time, she believed they had a chance, not just to survive, but to thrive. And perhaps in doing so, they could honor the memory of those who had come before them, the Nigma Empire, humanity's ancestors, and all the others who had dared to dream of a better future. The crew of the Aurora Dawn stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the glowing fragment. The word, choice, flickered on the screen, a stark reminder of the decision they had to make. Aaron Blake and Dr. Emily Carter exchanged uneasy glances, both aware that whatever path they chose would have irreversible consequences. Laura Hayes stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "We need to decide now," she said. "This isn't just about us. It's about everyone out there. If we let this thing evolve, it could spread beyond Earth again. But if we destroy it, we might lose our only chance to understand it." Marcus Lane tightened his grip on his weapon. "Destroying it sounds like the safest option. We've seen what happens when it gets loose. Do we really want to take the risk?" Rachel Kim shook her head. "But if we destroy it without understanding it, we're no better than the people who abandoned Earth. What if there's a way to control it, to use it for good?" Ensign Daniel Ross shifted uncomfortably. "What if there isn't? What if letting it evolve makes things worse? We've already seen how dangerous it is." Aaron sighed, rubbing his temples. "It's not just about danger or safety. It's about responsibility. Humanity created Project Eclipse. Running away from it didn't solve anything last time. Maybe it's time we faced it head on." Laura nodded slowly. "Then it's settled. We'll try to communicate with it, but we do it carefully. If anything goes wrong, we evacuate immediately. Understood?" The team murmured their agreement, though tension still hung heavy in the air. Aaron and Emily returned to the console, working quickly to refine the interface. The fragment pulsed brighter, responding to their efforts, and the images on the screen became clearer. Scenes of destruction gave way to glimpses of creation. Planets forming, ecosystems thriving, civilizations rising. For every moment of chaos, there was an equal measure of renewal. "It's showing us its potential," Emily whispered, her voice filled with awe. "Not just as a weapon, but as a force of change." Aaron frowned. "Change can be good or catastrophic. We need to know what kind of change it's proposing." The fragment responded by displaying another message. "Balance." "What does that mean?" Daniel asked nervously. "Balance between what?" Emily hesitated before answering. "Maybe it's talking about balance between destruction and creation, between life and death. If we work with it instead of against it, maybe we can guide it towards something constructive. But how do we know it won't turn on us?" Marcus countered. "It's already shown us what it can do." Laura stepped in, her tone resolute. "We don't, but sitting here arguing won't get us anywhere. Let's see what happens if we agree to let it evolve, for now. If it shows any sign of hostility, we shut it down." With the crew's reluctant consent, Aaron activated the final sequence. The fragment's glow intensified until it filled the room with blinding light. A low hum resonated through the ship, vibrating in their chests. Then the light faded, leaving behind a small, crystalline orb hovering above the containment pad. "It's smaller," Rachel observed, her voice tinged with wonder. "Is that all that's left?" Emily scanned the orb cautiously. "It's stabilized. Whatever it was before, it's different now. Calmer." Aaron reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing the surface of the orb. Instead of resistance, he felt warmth, a gentle pulse, almost like a heartbeat. Images flooded his mind once more, but this time they were peaceful. Vast fields of golden grass swayed under twin suns. Oceans teemed with vibrant life. Civilizations thrived. Their cities built in harmony with nature. "It's showing me possibilities," Aaron murmured. "Futures where humanity learns to live alongside it, not fight against it." Laura watched him closely. "Can we trust it?" Aaron hesitated before nodding. "I think so. It's not perfect, but nothing is. If we keep trying to destroy everything, we don't understand. We'll never move forward." As the crew prepared to leave Earth, the orb remained aboard the Aurora Dawn, secured in a specially designed chamber. Repairs to the ship were completed quickly, and within hours they were ready to depart. As the vessel lifted off, none of them looked back at the planet below. Earth had been both a cradle and a grave for humanity's greatest achievements and greatest failures. Back in space, Laura called a meeting in the briefing room. The mood was somber but hopeful, each member of the crew reflecting on what they had learned. "We came here looking for answers," Laura began, her voice steady. "And we found them, but not the ones we expected. Project Eclipse isn't just a weapon. It's a tool, one that humanity wasn't ready to wield. Maybe we're still not ready, but running away won't solve anything." Aaron nodded. "The Nigma Empire warned us about ourselves, about our recklessness, our ambition. They were right in a way, but they underestimated one thing: our ability to adapt, to learn, to grow. If we approach this responsibly, we can honor their warning without repeating their mistakes." Emily added, "Project Eclipse represents a choice, a chance to redefine how we interact with the universe. We can't erase the past, but we can shape the future." Laura turned to face the crew. "Our mission isn't over. We need to share what we've learned, with Earth's colonies, with other civilizations. This isn't just about saving ourselves. It's about ensuring that no one else has to face the same choices we did." Weeks later, the Aurora Dawn docked at a human colony orbiting a distant star. The crew disembarked, carrying with them the crystalline orb and the knowledge it represented. Their report sparked debates across the galaxy, forcing humanity and others to confront uncomfortable truths about power, responsibility, and the cost of progress. Aaron often thought about the vision he'd seen in the forest, the swirling lights, the shifting shapes, the voice that spoke without words. He knew the orb wasn't truly tamed, that it carried within it the potential for both creation and destruction, but he also knew that the same could be said of humanity itself. As the Aurora Dawn prepared for its next mission, Laura stood on the bridge, gazing out at the stars. Her expression was calm but thoughtful, her mind replaying the events of the past weeks. She turned to Aaron, who stood beside her. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked quietly. Aaron smiled, faintly. "I think we made the only choice we could. The rest is up to us and everyone else." Laura nodded, her gaze returning to the endless expanse of space. "Then let's hope we're ready." The ship's engines roared to life, propelling it forward into the unknown. Whatever lay ahead, the crew of the Aurora Dawn knew one thing. For certain, the lessons of Earth and the legacy of Project Eclipse would guide them for generations to come. The crew of the Aurora Dawn returned to their ship with a mix of relief and unease. They had successfully neutralized the containment system in the ancient structure, but none of them felt truly safe. The experience left them shaken, especially Aaron Blake, who had faced the glowing, pulsating creatures head-on. He sat in the ship's lab, staring at his hands as if expecting them to glow faintly, like the nanobots that had nearly overwhelmed him. Laura Hayes entered quietly, her boots making soft sounds against the metal floor. "You did good back there," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "We couldn't have done it without you." Aaron looked up, his expression troubled. "I don't think we're done yet," he admitted. "Project Eclipse isn't just some old weapon buried in the ground. It's alive, adaptive. Even if we shut down that containment system, parts of it might still be out there waiting." Laura sighed, leaning against the edge of the table. "You're probably right, but we've done what we can for now. The next step is figuring out where humanity went after abandoning Earth. Maybe they found a way to stop it completely, or at least contain it better than we did." Emily Carter joined them, carrying a stack of data tablets filled with information recovered from the structure. "There's more to this story," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. "Some of these records mention colonies established, far beyond Earth's borders. If we follow those leads, we might find answers, or survivors. The Aurora Dawn lifted off from Earth's surface, leaving behind the lush forests and abandoned cities. As the ship ascended into orbit, strange energy readings began to spike again. The anomalies that had plagued them earlier were growing stronger, almost as if something on the planet was resisting their departure. "We're not alone," Daniel Ross muttered nervously from his seat on the bridge. His fingers hovered over the controls, ready to act if needed. "It's like Earth itself doesn't want us to leave," Rachel Kim added, her eyes glued to the sensor displays. "But why? We shut down the containment system. What else could it want?" Laura clenched her jaw, her gaze fixed on the view screen showing Earth below. "Maybe it's not Earth," she said slowly. "Maybe it's Project Eclipse. It knows we're here, and it's testing us." Aaron frowned. "Testing us for what? To see if we'll finish what humanity started? Or to see if we'll make the same mistakes," Emily suggested grimly. "Humanity unleashed this weapon once. What's stopping us from doing it again?" The thought hung heavily in the air as the ship continued its ascent. Suddenly the alarms blared, and the entire vessel shuddered violently. Bright flashes of light erupted outside the windows, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. "What's happening?" Marcus Lane shouted, gripping his console tightly. "We're caught in some kind of energy field," Rachel replied, her voice rising with panic. "It's pulling us back toward the planet." Laura took charge immediately. "Divert all power to the engines. We need to break free." The crew scrambled to carry out her orders, their movements frantic but coordinated. The ship groaned under the strain as the engines roared to life, pushing against the invisible force dragging them downward. For several tense moments, it seemed like they might succeed, but then another surge of energy hit, knocking out half the systems on board. "We're losing altitude," Daniel cried, his voice cracking with fear. "Prepare for impact," Laura ordered, bracing herself as the ship hurtled uncontrollably toward the surface. The Aurora Dawn crash-landed in a dense forest, its hull scraping against tree branches before coming to rest in a clearing. Smoke billowed from damaged sections of the ship, and sparks flew from exposed wires inside. Miraculously, no one was seriously injured, though the crew was battered and bruised. "Well, that could have gone better," Aaron muttered dryly as he helped Emily to her feet. Laura emerged from the wreckage, her face streaked with soot, but her determination unwavering. "Everyone okay?" she asked, scanning the group. One by one, they nodded, though their expressions were grim. "We need to assess the damage," Marcus said, already heading toward the engine room. "If we don't get the ship repaired soon, we're stuck here." As the team worked to stabilize the Aurora Dawn, Aaron wandered away from the crash site, drawn by an inexplicable pull deep within the forest. The trees loomed tall and ancient, their gnarled roots twisting across the ground like veins. Strange symbols carved into the bark caught his attention, similar to those they had seen in the ruins. He reached out to touch one, his fingers brushing lightly against the rough surface. Instantly, a wave of heat surged through his body and the world around him shifted. The forest blurred, replaced by a vision of swirling lights and shifting shapes. A voice echoed in his mind, low and resonant, speaking words he couldn't understand, but somehow knew were important. "Aaron!" Laura's shout snapped him back to reality. He stumbled backward, gasping for breath as the vision faded. "What happened?" she demanded, rushing to his side. I don't know," Aaron stammered, still trembling. "The tree. It showed me something, like a warning." Laura studied him closely, her brow furrowed. "Warning about what?" Before Aaron could answer, Emily approached, holding a fragment of crystalline material she had retrieved from the crash site. "Look at this," she said, holding it up to the light. Tiny etchings glimmered on its surface, forming patterns that resembled circuitry. This isn't just debris, she explained. It's part of Project Eclipse. Somehow it survived the shutdown and latched onto the ship during our descent. Aaron's stomach churned. That explains the energy field. It didn't want us to leave because it came with us. Laura's expression hardened. Then we need to get rid of it, now, before it spreads any further. The crew gathered around the crystalline fragment, which pulsed faintly with an ominous green glow. Emily placed it on a containment pad, carefully attaching sensors to monitor its activity. If we destroy it, we might trigger another reaction, she warned. But if we don't, it'll keep trying to take over the ship, and us. Do it, Laura said firmly. We can't risk letting it grow. Aaron hesitated, his mind racing. Wait, what if destroying it isn't enough? What if Project Eclipse is designed to adapt even after being dismantled? We saw how fast it evolved when we fought those creatures. Then what do you suggest? Rachel asked, her tone sharp with frustration. We can't just sit here and wait for it to consume us. Aaron looked at the fragment, his thoughts churning. Maybe we can use it, he said finally. If it's intelligent, if it's learning, then maybe we can communicate with it. Find out what it wants. That's insane, Marcus argued. It's a weapon, not a person. You can't reason with something like that. But maybe we have to try, Emily countered. If we can understand it, we might find a way to stop it permanently. Laura considered the idea carefully. All right, she said after a moment. But we move cautiously. Aaron, you work with Emily to set up a secure interface. Everyone else, stay alert. If anything goes wrong, we evacuate immediately. As Aaron and Emily worked to establish communication with the fragment, the rest of the crew kept watch, their weapons drawn and their nerves on edge. The forest around them remained eerily silent, save for the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Hours passed, and the tension grew thicker with each passing minute. Finally, Aaron let out a triumphant cry. I think I've got it, he exclaimed, pointing to the screen displaying lines of code. It's responding. The fragment's glow intensified, and a series of images flickered across the monitor. Scenes of battles, planets burning, and humanoid figures collapsing played in rapid succession. Then, a single word appeared on the screen. Choice. What does that mean? Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Aaron exchanged a glance with Emily. It's giving us an option, he said slowly, to either destroy it or let it evolve. And what happens if we choose the second one? Laura asked, her tone wary. Aaron hesitated. I don't know, but whatever it is, it'll change everything, for better or worse. The crew stared at the fragment, the weight of their decision pressing down on them. Humanity had created Project Eclipse to protect itself only to lose control of its power. Now the choice rested in their hands, to end it once and for all, or to gamble on the possibility of redemption. As they debated, the fragment pulsed brighter, as if impatient for their answer. Whatever they decided, time was running out. The Aurora Dawn landed gently on a grassy plain near one of the towering structures that dotted Earth's surface. The air outside was thick with the scent of wildflowers and damp soil, a stark contrast to the sterile environment of the ship. Captain Laura Hayes led the team as they stepped onto the ground, their boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. The structure loomed ahead, its massive stone walls covered in ivy and moss. It looked ancient, yet there was something unmistakably advanced about it. Lines of metal embedded in the stone glimmered faintly in the sunlight. This place feels wrong, Ensign Daniel Ross muttered, his voice barely audible over the chirping of birds in the distance. He adjusted the strap of his rifle nervously, his eyes darting around the clearing. It's not just you, Lieutenant Aaron Blake replied, scanning the area with a handheld device. There's energy here. Faint, but definitely artificial. Laura motioned for the team to follow her toward the entrance of the structure. The massive doors were partially open, revealing a dark passageway beyond. As they approached, a low hum vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. It wasn't loud, but it was constant, almost like the sound of machinery idling far away. "Stay close," Laura ordered, her hand resting on the grip of her weapon. "We don't know what's waiting inside." The interior of the structure was dimly lit by glowing panels set into the walls. Strange symbols, similar to those found on the derelict Nigma vessel, were etched into the surfaces. Dr. Emily Carter ran her fingers over one of the panels, her brow furrowed in concentration. "These markings are human," she said after a moment. "But they're written in a language that hasn't been used in centuries. Whoever built this must have known what was coming." "What do you mean?" Rachel Kim asked, her voice cautious. Emily hesitated before answering. They knew Project Eclipse couldn't be stopped. "These symbols, they're warnings. They're telling us to leave, to turn back." Aaron frowned. If they wanted us to leave, why go to all the trouble of building this place? Why leave anything behind at all? Before anyone could answer, the group reached a large chamber at the heart of the structure. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and atop it rested a holographic projector. Laura stepped forward and activated it. The air shimmered, and a figure materialized before them. A man dressed in simple robes, his face calm but weary. "Greetings," the figure began, his voice deep and resonant. "If you are seeing this message, then we have failed. Humanity has fled Earth, leaving behind only this record of our final days." The crew listened intently as the recording continued. The man explained that after defeating the Nigma Empire, with Project Eclipse, humanity realized the weapon was uncontrollable. The nanobots that powered it had begun spreading uncontrollably, consuming everything in their path. Entire ecosystems had been altered, and even the atmosphere showed signs of corruption. Humanity had no choice but to abandon Earth, fleeing to distant colonies in hopes of escaping the devastation they had unleashed. "But we cannot guarantee that Project Eclipse will remain contained," the man warned. "It is adaptive, evolving, faster than we can predict. If it has awakened again, may the stars have mercy on us all." The recording ended abruptly, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Aaron broke the quiet first. "So, humanity didn't just destroy the Nigma," he said, his voice heavy with realization. "They destroyed themselves too. Or at least, they tried to." Laura nodded slowly. "And now we're standing in the middle of whatever's left. We need to find out if Project Eclipse is still active. And if it is, we need to stop it." As the team explored further, they discovered more evidence of humanity's desperate attempt to contain the weapon. Massive containment chambers lined the lower levels of the structure, each sealed with reinforced doors marked with hazard symbols. Some of the chambers appeared intact, while others had been breached, their contents spilling out into the surrounding corridors. Strange, pulsating growths covered the walls in these areas, glowing faintly in hues of green and blue. "What is this stuff?" Marcus Lane asked, poking at one of the growths with the barrel of his rifle. It quivered under his touch, releasing a puff of glittering particles into the air. "Be careful!" Emily snapped, pulling him back. "That's probably part of the nanobot network. If it gets loose—" She didn't finish her sentence, but the implication was clear. The crew backed away from the growths, their unease growing with every step. In another chamber, they found a control console surrounded by holographic displays. Aaron examined the interface, his fingers flying over the controls as he tried to access the system. After several tense moments, he let out a frustrated sigh. "It's locked," he said. "I can't get past the security protocols." "Maybe we don't need to," Emily suggested, pointing to a series of diagrams displayed on one of the screens. "Look at this. These schematics show how the containment system works. If we can trigger a shutdown sequence manually, we might be able to deactivate it." Laura considered the idea carefully. "How long would that take?" "At least an hour," Emily admitted. and we'd need someone to stay here and monitor the process while the rest of us secure the perimeter. I'll stay, Aaron volunteered immediately. You guys go ahead and make sure nothing sneaks up on us. Laura hesitated, but eventually nodded. All right, but keep your comm line open. If anything happens, call for backup. While Emily and the others patrolled the upper levels of the structure, Aaron worked tirelessly at the console, inputting commands and monitoring the progress of the shutdown sequence. The chamber was eerily quiet, the only sounds coming from the hum of the machinery and the occasional drip of water echoing through the halls. As the minutes ticked by, Aaron began to feel a strange sensation, a tingling in his skin, like static, electricity building up in the air. At first he dismissed it as fatigue, but when the lights flickered and the temperature dropped suddenly, he realized something was wrong. Guys, I think we've got company, he whispered into his comm unit, his eyes scanning the shadows around him. We're on our way, Laura's voice crackled back. Hold tight. But before the team could return, the chamber was plunged into darkness. The glow from the containment growths intensified, casting eerie light across the room. From the corners of the chamber, shapes began to emerge, twisted, humanoid forms made of the same pulsating material as the growths. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, their glowing eyes fixed on Aaron. He backed away slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. Emily, I could really use some help down here, he said, his voice trembling. We're almost there, Emily replied, her tone urgent. Aaron raised his weapon, firing a blast of energy at the nearest creature. It staggered but didn't fall, its body regenerating almost instantly. More of them advanced, closing in around him. Desperation surged through him as he searched for a way out. Then he remembered the console. If he couldn't stop the shutdown sequence, maybe he could speed it up. With shaking hands, he typed in a final command, initiating an emergency override. The machines roared to life, the hum growing louder and more intense. The creatures paused, their heads tilting as if confused. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light filled the chamber, followed by a deafening boom. Aaron shielded his face as the floor shook violently beneath him. When the light faded, the creatures were gone, reduced to nothing more than ash and fragments of metal. Breathing heavily, Aaron slumped against the console, his body trembling with exhaustion. Moments later, Laura and the others burst into the room, weapons drawn. What happened? Laura demanded, her eyes wide with concern. I think I triggered the shutdown, Aaron replied weakly, but I'm not sure if it worked. Emily quickly checked the console, her expression brightening as she read the results. It did, she said with a relieved smile. The containment system is offline. Whatever was left of Project Eclipse, it's neutralized. The team exchanged looks of relief, though none of them felt truly safe. They knew they had narrowly escaped disaster, but the knowledge they had gained weighed heavily on them. Humanity's greatest weapon had nearly become its greatest curse, and the scars it left behind would never fully heal. As they made their way back to the Aurora Dawn, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't seen the last of Project Eclipse. Somewhere deep within Earth's hidden places, remnants of the weapon might still linger, waiting, watching, and ready to awaken once more. Part 2. The Aurora Dawn drifted silently through the void as its crew processed the revelations from the Nigma ruins. The weight of what they had uncovered pressed heavily on everyone's minds. Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Her thoughts raced, trying to piece together the implications of what Aaron and the team had found. Humanity's past was far more complex and dangerous than anyone had imagined. Dr. Emily Carter sat in the ship's research lab, surrounded by fragments of data recovered from the crystalline devices. Her fingers moved swiftly over the console, sifting through corrupted files and damaged logs. She was determined to uncover every detail she could about the mysterious weapon Earth had used against the Nigma. Beside her, Lieutenant Aaron Blake watched intently, his mind buzzing with theories. "Anything new?" he asked, breaking the silence. Emily glanced up, her face pale but focused. "Some of these records are intact enough to give us a clearer picture," she said. "They mention something called Project Eclipse. It's described as, I don't know how to put it, a system maybe? Something beyond conventional weapons." Aaron frowned. "Beyond conventional? What does that even mean?" "It's hard to say," Emily admitted. "But there are references to self-replication and adaptive capabilities. If I'm reading this right, Project Eclipse wasn't just a bomb or a missile. It was alive in a way. It could learn, adapt, and evolve." Aaron's stomach tightened. "That sounds less like a weapon and more like a predator." Emily nodded grimly. "Exactly. And if it evolved fast enough, it might have turned on the Nigma before they realized what was happening." The conversation was interrupted by a sharp knock on the door. Ensign Daniel Ross stepped inside, his youthful face pale with concern. "Captain Hayes wants everyone in the briefing room," he said. "She says it's urgent." The crew gathered quickly, their expressions tense. Laura stood at the head of the table, her posture rigid. On the central screen behind her, a map of nearby space flickered to life. A red dot blinked ominously near Earth's outer colonies. "We've detected another anomaly," Laura began, her voice steady but firm. "It's coming from an abandoned vessel drifting close to Earth's borders. Our scans show signs of life aboard, not human." A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus Lane, one of the security officers, leaned forward. "Life? You mean survivors?" "Possibly," Laura replied. "But we can't be sure. Whatever, or whoever, is on that ship, we need to investigate. This could be connected to the Nigma." Aaron exchanged a glance with Emily. Both knew the risks involved, but they also understood the importance of finding answers. If Project Eclipse still existed somewhere, the fate of the galaxy might depend on stopping it. Hours later, the shuttle carrying Laura, Aaron, Marcus, Rachel, and Daniel approached the derelict vessel. Its hull was scorched and battered, marked by centuries of exposure to the harsh conditions of space. As they docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing a dark and eerily silent interior. "This place gives me the creeps," Daniel muttered, gripping his flashlight tightly. The beam cut through the gloom, illuminating twisted corridors lined with debris and strange symbols etched into the walls. "Stay alert," Laura ordered, her hand resting on the hilt of her sidearm. "We don't know what we're walking into." The group moved cautiously, their footsteps echoing softly against the metal floors. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the environment became. Strange energy readings pulsed faintly around them, making their instruments behave erratically. At one point, Rachel paused, her brow furrowed. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Everyone froze. Faint whispers seemed to drift through the air, too soft to understand but impossible to ignore. They weren't alone. Suddenly, movement caught Aaron's eye. He spun around, shining his light down a narrow passageway. Shadows shifted unnaturally, coalescing into humanoid shapes. Before anyone could react, the figures lunged forward with unnatural speed. "Get back!" Marcus shouted, raising his weapon. Blasts of energy erupted in the cramped corridor as the team fought off the attackers. The creatures were grotesque, twisted parodies of the Nigma depicted in the ruins, their bodies warped by some unknown force. Their eyes glowed faintly and their limbs moved with jerky, mechanical precision. Despite their ferocity, the mutants were no match for the team's coordinated defense. One by one, they fell, leaving behind only eerie silence. But as the crew caught their breath, Aaron noticed something unusual about one of the fallen beings. Unlike the others, this one wasn't dead. It was barely alive, its chest rising and falling in shallow gasps. "We need to take it back to the ship," Aaron said firmly. "If we can study it, we might learn more about what happened here. Laura hesitated, but eventually nodded. All right, but be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with. Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Dr. Emily Carter examined the captured creature in the medical bay. The being lay strapped to a gurney, its mutated form twitching involuntarily. Emily worked methodically, scanning its body with advanced diagnostic tools. What she discovered chilled her to the bone. These things aren't entirely organic, she explained to Aaron and Laura, who watched from the observation window. Their bodies are infused with nanotechnology, self-replicating machines that have essentially rewritten their biology. Aaron's eyes widened. Nanobots? That's part of Project Eclipse? It has to be, Emily confirmed. These nanobots seem designed to adapt and consume. Once released, they wouldn't stop until everything in their path was assimilated or destroyed. Laura crossed her arms, her expression grim. So, Project Eclipse didn't just attack the Nigma fleet. It infected them, turned them into whatever this is. And if those nanobots are still active? Aaron trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. The entire galaxy could be at risk, Laura finished for him. She turned to face the crew. We need to get closer to Earth. If Project Eclipse originated there, we'll find answers, or at least a way to contain it. As the Aurora Dawn set a course for Earth, strange phenomena began to plague the ship. Navigation systems malfunctioned without warning, sending the crew scrambling to recalibrate their trajectory. Communication arrays crackled with static, and faint energy spikes disrupted power grids throughout the vessel. What's causing this? Daniel asked nervously, clutching the edge of his console as the lights flickered overhead. I don't know, Aaron admitted, his voice tight with worry, but it feels like something is watching us. Laura stood on the bridge, her jaw clenched. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were being drawn toward Earth against their will. Every attempt to alter their course met with resistance, as though invisible forces were guiding them forward. It's like the planet itself is calling us, Emily murmured when she joined Laura later. Maybe Project Eclipse is still operational. Maybe it knows we're coming. Laura stared out at the growing blue orb of Earth on the view screen. If it does, we'd better be ready, because whatever we're walking into, it's bigger than all of us. Tension mounted as the Aurora Dawn entered Earth's atmosphere. The planet below looked deceptively peaceful, its surface lush and vibrant with life. Towering forests stretched across continents, and sparkling oceans reflected the sunlight. Yet there was no sign of human civilization. Cities lay abandoned, overtaken by nature, while massive structures resembling ancient temples dotted the landscape. This doesn't make sense, Aaron said, peering at the monitors. Earth should be thriving. Where is everyone? They left, Emily replied softly. She held up a fragment of data recovered earlier. According to these records, humanity fled after defeating the Nigma. They knew Project Eclipse was too dangerous to control, so they chose exile instead. But why leave Earth behind? Rachel asked. Why not destroy it? Because they hoped someone else would finish what they started, Laura said quietly. Her gaze lingered on the image of the planet below. They wanted us to find this place, to learn the truth. Aaron felt a knot tighten in his stomach. The pieces were falling into place, but the bigger picture terrified him. Humanity's greatest victory had come at an unimaginable cost, and now they were standing on the brink of uncovering its legacy. Whether that legacy would save them or doom them remained to be seen. As the Aurora Dawn descended further into Earth's atmosphere, the crew braced themselves for what awaited them. The planet may have been beautiful, but its secrets were anything but. The year was 2147, and the vastness of space stretched endlessly before the crew of the starship Aurora Dawn. The ship glided silently through the cold vacuum, its sleek metallic frame reflecting the faint light of distant stars. Inside, Captain Laura Hayes stood on the bridge, her sharp eyes scanning the monitors that surrounded her. She was a woman of calm authority, with short brown hair and a steady gaze that inspired confidence in her team. Beside her sat Lieutenant Aaron Blake, an astrophysicist whose curiosity about the universe often bordered on obsession. His glasses rested slightly crooked on his nose as he leaned forward, studying the blinking signals on his console. The mission had been simple at first: patrol the outer edges of human-controlled space and ensure no hostile forces threatened Earth or its colonies. But then something unusual happened. A distress signal came through, weak and fragmented, originating from a remote quadrant of space. It wasn't like anything they'd encountered before. The message repeated itself in broken bursts, mixing, static with strange tones that sent shivers down the spines of everyone who heard it. Laura turned to Aaron. "What do you make of this?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with concern. Aaron adjusted his glasses and frowned. "It's not human," he replied after a moment. "The frequency modulation is too complex for our standard communication protocols. Whoever, or whatever, sent this isn't speaking our language." Laura nodded slowly. "Can we trace it?" "It's coming from a system we've never explored," Aaron said, pointing to a map displayed on one of the screens. A red dot blinked faintly in a region marked as uncharted territory. "If we go there, we'll be venturing far beyond what's safe." "Safe hasn't been part of our job description since we left Earth," Laura said with a small smile. "Set a course. Let's see what we're dealing with." Hours later, the Aurora Dawn approached the source of the signal. What greeted them was both awe-inspiring and eerie. The planet below was barren, its surface scarred by craters and streaked with rivers of molten rock. Thick clouds of ash swirled in the atmosphere, casting the landscape in perpetual twilight. There were signs of ruins scattered across the terrain, towers reduced to rubble, roads cracked and buried under centuries of decay. This world had once been home to someone or something advanced enough to build cities. Now it was a graveyard. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Ensign Daniel Ross, a young navigator seated near the back of the bridge. His fingers hovered nervously over his controls as he monitored the ship's descent. "You're not alone," Laura said, though her tone remained firm. "Prepare a landing party. We need answers." Aaron joined the group heading down to the surface. Alongside him were Dr. Emily Carter, the ship's historian, and two security officers, Marcus Lane and Rachel Kim. As their shuttle touched down on the cracked ground, a gust of hot wind whipped around them, carrying the scent of sulfur. They stepped out cautiously, their boots crunching against the brittle earth. The air was thin, forcing them to rely on their suits' oxygen supplies. The ruins loomed ahead, jagged structures rising like skeletal fingers into the dim sky. Aaron led the way, his scanner emitting soft beeps as it analyzed the environment. "There's residual energy here," he said, glancing at the readings. "Whatever destroyed this place, it wasn't natural." Emily knelt beside a pile of debris, brushing away layers of dust to reveal a fragment of metal etched with intricate symbols. "These markings, they're not human," she murmured, running her gloved fingers over the patterns. "This belonged to an alien civilization." Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon. "Aliens? Do you think whoever lived here might still be around?" "If they are, they're long gone," Rachel replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "Look at this place. It's been dead for centuries." But as they ventured deeper into the ruins, they began to find evidence that told a story, one of conflict and destruction. In the remains of what appeared to be a command center, they discovered intact records stored in crystalline devices. Aaron carefully extracted one and connected it to a portable reader. Images flickered to life on the screen, showing scenes of battles fought among the stars. Ships clashed in fiery explosions, planets burned, and beings unlike any they'd ever seen marched across scorched landscapes. "These are the Nigma," Aaron said, his voice tinged with awe. "They ruled this sector of space thousands of years ago. Their technology was unmatched, their empire vast." "But something stopped them," Emily added, pointing to more footage showing the Nigma retreating from a battle. "And it looks like it came from Earth." Laura listened intently as Aaron pieced together the fragments of information. According to the logs, the Nigma had encountered humanity during Earth's early days of space exploration. At the time, humans were just beginning to venture beyond their solar system, unaware of the dangers lurking in the cosmos. The Nigma saw this expansion as reckless and warned humanity to halt their progress. They predicted that unchecked growth would lead to catastrophic wars and the eventual destruction of entire worlds. "But we didn't listen," Aaron continued, his expression darkening. "Instead of heeding their warning, we dismissed them as arrogant conquerors trying to impose their will. So, they decided to act. The recordings showed the Nigma launching a massive fleet toward Earth, determined to eliminate the threat before it could grow. But something unexpected happened. As the invaders approached, Earth unleashed a weapon unlike anything the Nigma had ever faced. The details were vague, obscured by damage to the records, but the outcome was clear. The Nigma fleet was annihilated. Their empire collapsed soon after, leaving behind only ruins and whispers of their former glory. "What kind of weapon could do that?" Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Aaron admitted. "But whatever it was, it changed everything, for them and for us." As the team prepared to leave the ruins, Aaron couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. The Nigma's warnings echoed in his mind, raising questions he couldn't ignore. Had humanity truly defeated such a powerful enemy, or had they unleashed something even worse? And if Earth had possessed such devastating power, where was it now? Back aboard the Aurora Dawn, Laura called a meeting to discuss their findings. The mood was somber as the crew gathered in the briefing room. Aaron summarized what they had learned, his words painting a picture of a forgotten chapter in human history. "We need to understand what happened here," Laura said finally. "If Earth developed a weapon capable of wiping out the Nigma, we have to know why and whether it still exists." "And if it does?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling slightly. "What happens then?" No one answered. The silence hung heavy in the air, filled with unspoken fears and unanswered questions. Whatever secrets lay hidden in Earth's past, they knew one thing for certain: uncovering them would change everything.